Welcome to the Cattle Innovation Station podcast,
bringing you the innovative new ways of the cattle industry.
We're your hosts, Baxter Whitworth and Paul Hayes. Together, we're going to be interviewing leaders within the cattle industry.
Here on this podcast, our focus is honoring God and innovating the cattle industry. Get ready to listen, learn, and laugh as we help innovate the cattle industry.
Let's get innovating. Have you been looking for a place to buy top quality AI sire semen or collect a bull of your own? Well, look no further than Elgin Breeding Services. Located in Elgin, Texas, Elgin Breeding Service is not only one of the best breeding services in the business, but also has superior customer service. Contact them at ebsbull@elginbreedingservices.com or by phone at 512-285-2019. Again, that's 512-285-2019. And visit their website at elginbreedingservice.com. It's time for another episode of the Cattle Innovation Station podcast. I'm your host, Baxter Whitworth, and as always, joining me today is your other host, Paul Hayes. In this episode, we're going to be discussing how to advocate for agriculture, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the state of the United States beef industry. Our guest today is Mr. Tucker Brown. How are you today?
Hey, living the dream, Baxter.
Living the dream.
Living the dream.
Down in College Station.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So we left off the last episode. We were talking about your social media platforms, and we're gonna talk about just kind of how to advocate for agriculture for anybody that wants to get started in that.
Okay.
So, how do you advocate for agriculture to people with maybe a diverse backgrounds and lifestyles?
No, I don't think you have to have. You don't have to grow up in it. You don't have to have a generational ranch. You don't have to have hundreds of cows. You just have to be in it a little bit, whether that's showing goats, whether that's having a garden in your backyard, whether that's trying to grow one plant in your house. We're all connected somehow to agriculture, somehow.
Even if it's just eating.
Even if it's just eating. Even if it's just eating. So those, advocating on the ranching side, obviously, is kind of where I'm the most familiar. And so when someone asks, how do I start? And it's easy for me to say, well, just do it. But a couple steps to take, I think, is if you started once a week, just sharing it while you were working, whether that's feeding cows, watering your goat, watering your plant, moving cows, working cows, whatever, while you're doing it, one time a week, just to turn the camera on, say, hey, it's Paul Hayes. Today we're working these cows, and this is what we do. And we vaccinate them to make sure that these diseases are not going to be hurtful to these cows. We want to, do what's best for them to keep them healthy so that they can have a healthy calf. And that's what we're doing today. And that's all it takes. And you do that. I always say once a week for 6 months. And by then, you will train your mind to notice the times when you need to video. You'll start to recognize more times like, oh, this would be a good time I can do video. And it's not scary because you can edit it. You can redo it as much as you want. You're not speaking in front of a crowd. And then you're talking about the things you already know. It's not a test. All you have to say is what you're doing. And like we said in the last episode, the truth is all we have to tell. We don't have to have an agenda with it. We can just tell the truth. So that's what I say. Once a week, say what you're doing. And that's the cool thing about advocating is you don't have to be in people's face about it. All you have to do is you're kind of opening your gates and showing people what you're doing.
Absolutely. And another part about it, honestly, at first my podcast was scarier to me than talking in front of people because when you talk in front of people, I'm talking to you right now. I said something. Well, that just happened. I mean, there's no taking that back.
Yeah.
But now the podcast, I got to be like, oh, I messed up on that. I still have to publish this, which I mean, I do get to kind of edit some stuff out, but some
Sure.
stuff is just way too big to edit out, and so that to me that was always what was the scarier part.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense.
Absolutely. And we talked about you use social media a ton to advocate. What other mediums do you use to advocate? What other just tools? Yeah.
Other tools. I'm in. I mean, that's definitely my main way. Selling beef is another way. Whenever I show up to the couple places, or whenever people, another couple ways we do is we have a couple universities come to the ranch and bring beef classes. And whenever Texas Tech or A&M or Tarleton, Clarendon, we have a group from Australia coming. We've had a couple from Brazil, and when they get to be, when you set foot on the ranch, it just kind of changes things. Just like us having this conversation in person means a whole lot more to us than it does over the computer.
Right.
It's the same way with people in agriculture. Like they can see it on their phone all day, but when they get to touch it and feel it and smell it, that's where people. It's so memorable, and it changes the way that they think about things. It's harder and more time consuming, bigger commitment to get people to the ranch, but I do believe that it does make a big difference.
Of course, and then also registered ranching. I'm a fan.
Oh yeah, registered ranching. Obviously, another way that we do, and I do some speaking as well, and that's such another cool job. Like you paid to talk about ranching. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
And so getting to share the story of social media and family generations, and meeting people face to face, whether it's in Washington State or Florida or the Throckmorton FFA chapter. I mean, all of those places I really enjoy.
Right. When we're trying to come up with like your content, how do you, on social media, on podcast, on anything, when you're bringing someone to your ranch, how do you decide what's most important to tell them, to what content to create for them? Like, how do you decide what would be most important?
Well, kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. It's easier to sell what the consumer wants to buy, and it's easier to talk about what your listener wants to hear. And so it depends on what group I'm talking to. If I'm talking to a group from Dallas, like I'm going to talk about animal health. I'm going to talk about how we care for them. I'm going to talk about why we graze the way we do, why we use the antibiotics, and why that's safe. And then if I'm talking to a group of bull customers, I'm going to be talking more about health and EPDs and different ways to sell their calves to get more money. And so really it just depends on, I like to look at data. And so the data always tells me what is the most important. So if I'm looking at consumers, I'll look up data. What are they most concerned about? And if they are concerned about it and they hear it on their phone, they are way more likely to watch and listen. That's how I do. But also it's kind of the part of training your mind to recognize what is most important. And that's why posting once a week for 6 months will start the training process in your mind.
Gotcha.
Right.
Absolutely.
Of course. And then so we've good, Paul.
I was just gonna say that now that we've talked about how to advocate for agriculture, we're gonna go ahead and start talking about the state of the U.S. beef industry.
Okay.
Right, and so that's, there's a lot of things going on right now. A lot of moving parts, whether it be the international side, well, actually a lot of it has to do with the international side of things,
Yeah.
but whether it be the trade side
Yeah.
or the New World Screwworm, which also kind of has some international barriers to it.
Sure.
There's a lot going on. So we're going to start off with trade, and then we'll move into the New World Screwworm.
Okay.
What kind of impact do you think that importing ground beef has on America? Because I'm sure you know we export our high retail cuts, but we eat so much lean meat and burgers in America that we actually have to import ground beef. And so, what kind of impact do you think that has on the consumer, our industry? Maybe you could even what kind of impact does it have on the rest of the world?
Yeah.
If you truly want your livestock to perform at their best, make sure to contact Vance Aaron, the owner and operator of AFL Livestock Solutions. Vance specializes in MagnaWave treatments that use pulsed electromagnetic fields, or PEMF, to relieve pain, swelling, and inflammation, caused to help your livestock feel their best. In addition to livestock, Vance can also help you feel better. His treatment works great on sore muscles and joints, along with other mobility issues. His treatments are FDA approved to treat migraines. Aaron Family Livestock Solutions has helped many exhibitors make it to the backdrop with their proven MagnaWave treatments. Don't miss your next backdrop picture. Give Vance a call at 903-720-3184. Again, that's 903-720-3184. Or find them on Facebook at AFL Livestock Solutions.
These are topics where there are a lot of different opinions, depending on where you sit politically within the ag industry. And so, whether you agree with my statements or not, I hope you hear me out at least. Bringing in, so trade is a good thing between countries. Trade is a good thing. It's good for the 30,000 foot picture. And so if we didn't bring in ground beef prices would be really high. And in the short term, that may be good for ranchers because cattle will sell higher. But at what point, when ground beef is $12 a pound, people are going to go to a different protein. They're going to start buying more chicken. They're going to start buying more pork and turkey. And turkey. So we have to be conscious of that. And I believe in an open market that whenever the price is too high, that people will stop buying. And
I agree.
Like the market tells us that, supply and demand. And so the U.S. creates a lot of highly marbled beef. And so to get that 90-10 lean beef, there's not much of that in the United States. And so bringing that in from another country at a cheaper rate than what we're selling, we're trading high quality prime product for lean, cheap ground beef. And we're able to cheapen up that ground beef side, which I think is a good thing because it keeps beef on people's plates. And it's still, trade increases the final price of a fat steer right now by over $400. And that's a huge number per head.
Right.
That's a huge number per head. And any that's able to come back to the ag industry, to the rancher, to the stocker, to the feeder, to the seed stock guy, I think that's huge. So why not take that opportunity? An open market. I believe in open market. I believe in open trade. And whenever you can make that product, or whenever you need a product, I think you should be able to trade for that. So bringing in that ground beef, I think as a whole is a good thing. Can it cause some issues as far as trust maybe from our consumership in the U.S.? It can, and we've seen it do that. But the cool part is that options are available. That if you want to know where your beef comes from, you have that option. And that's why I do think that having direct to consumer or knowing more about that beef is I think it's important that it's available because having those options for our consumers allows them to pick and choose. They may not like that we're shipping in some, so they can come over here and maybe buy a little more expensive ground beef that knows that they know more about. But if they don't care, if they just want the beef on the table that is safe, they may not know where it comes from, but it's safe, they can go back to that product.
Okay. Remind me before we go to the next question, I want to have you react to a video, but I also want to talk about some stuff off of what you just said.
Okay.
So, I think another Well, I guess I have another question. Not on the scheduled questions. Do you think that if we were ever to reach a point where we could, with that, while still exporting our high retail cuts, do you think if we were ever to reach a point where we could supply our own amount of ground beef, that would be a good thing for the consumer and the cattle ranchers in the United States?
If we could keep that, I mean, the market will tell us. My thoughts are that with all-time low cattle number, not all time, but with cattle numbers lower than they've been since the 1950s, we're in Texas alone, we're losing 1,000 acres a day of grazing and farmland due to urbanization.
Right.
I don't know if that's going to be, I don't know if that's in the near future anyway. So, but yeah, food is a national security. Like
Right.
it is a huge thing. I don't want to depend on another country to supply us food, because if they cut that off, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. So that's why it is important to have other protein sources, because if something happens in the beef industry, we need other food sources for our country. But yeah, that would if we're producing enough ground beef for our industry, I do think that's going to bring the price of the animal down, the whole animal down. But the market will tell us.
Right. So
You are making $500,000 and you were only going to pay me 30?
You're getting 30 grand? I'm getting 1,000.
Wait, you guys are getting paid?
That's pretty good. I mean, I love the humor, right?
Right.
I love that it's funny and you're able to tell a story. It's funny how that we have all these different sectors in the industry, and we feel like we're kind of against each other.
right.
Like that the feeder is against the cow calf guy, or that and typically in the ranch industry, we look at the packer as a negative connotation. We need them. We need them. And it's kind of weird the spot we're in now, where the cow calf guy has so much leverage that these brand new packing plants that came up in 2021, when we were begging for new ones, they're hurting right now. But just because the cow calf guy has so much leverage, because there's way less cattle than there are hooks, harvesting hooks. And so, but the ranch kids part is funny. Like I love that part, because as a ranch kid, it's like, well, can I get paid? They're like, you're getting paid by living in our house.
Yes.
And experience. Yeah, getting paid and experiences.
What are you talking about? I gave you a room and I fed you dinner.
Yeah.
Not legally required to do that.
Right.
It is legal. I was reading something that, like, your parents are allowed to force you to help with a family business.
Well, they should. I
mean, it's basically a chore.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy it.
enjoy it.
Yeah. Same.
It's just funny to joke about.
It is.
Yes.
All right. So back to trade. Being part of a large seed stock operation in the United States, and producing your own ranch-raised beef, what type of impact do you think the trade deal? I wrote down one, because at the time there was only one big recent one. Now there's three. So the Australia beef trade deal,
Yep.
the one with South Korea, which, in case I'm sure you know, but South Korea is our largest
They're
importer
big
of
on-
beef.
Yeah.
And then the European Union. What do you think those trade deals will have an impact on beef?
Mm.
Seeing as they do all have some concern with beef,
Yeah,
or
they do.
beef products,
Mhm.
not necessarily live genetics.
I don't know how much. Here's the deal I do know is that U.S. beef is really sought after because of how much marbling we have.
Yeah.
It's not like a Wagyu, but it is kind of that choice and prime is just so sought after in the U.S. and South Korea and Japan, other Mexico, all these different places that are buying from the U.S. because the U.S. is so good at making that product. Other places around the world, like Australia and the EU, they tend to like the lean beef. Now, I don't know if it's because that's what they grew up with, or if it's because they've tried both, grass-fed and grain-fed, and they like that more. In my American Texan mind, it's because they haven't tried our product yet.
Infinity Cattle Services, owned by Chris Shivers, is glad to be a sponsor of the Cattle Innovation Station podcast. Infinity Cattle Services, a unique, vision-driven, service-oriented company committed to developing successful revenue-producing cattle operations, is a full-service consulting and marketing firm specializing in Brahman and Brahman-influenced cattle. Contact them today to learn more about how they can assist you with locating cattle, cattle mating, sale management, marketing, communications, record keeping, data submission, and a wide array of other services. They can be reached at 713-202-1747. Again, that's 713-202-1747, or at infinitycattleservices@gmail.com. That is infinitycattleservices@gmail.com. Visit their website at infinitycattle.com or check them out on Facebook and Instagram.
There's also not many people in Australia. There's more people in Texas than there is in the whole country of Australia.
Really, I did not know.
I didn't know this.
I mean, there's somebody's probably going to call me wrong. It's wanting to make me look it up, but there are not many people in Australia. And so is that they're already exporting a ton of beef. And so are we going to trade much in there? Honestly, I don't think so. Like maybe it's a long game, like in 15 years, maybe we are. Like if they try our product and they like it and they want that grain-fed, high marbling, tender beef, that maybe they will. I see some more opportunity in the EU probably than I do in Australia, just because of how many people are over there. South Korea, I'm excited about that one, just because they already eat a lot of our beef, and more opportunity is always really good.
Absolutely.
Okay, so according to Microsoft Edge, there is 26.8 million people in Australia, and there is 31,290,000 people in Texas.
There you go, more people in Texas than the whole country of Australia.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That is just crazy.
Isn't it wild to think about? That whole continent. So that's why I don't think that's going to be a huge trade deal, just because there's not many people.
So what do you think? Because they're already our largest importer, South Korea is, but now they're taking away tariffs on our beef. So do you think that'll have any impact? Do you think people are already, buying our beef more than anybody else?
Yeah. They are, but also, if it's cheaper and more affordable for that South Korean citizen, are they going to buy? If they already like it and it's more affordable, are they going to buy more? I think so. I think the typical supply and demand tells you that they would buy more, but maybe they're already at their max capacity of beef consumption. The market will tell us.
Right.
But more opportunity is always
good.
I think more opportunity is always better.
Absolutely.
So, shame on me for not knowing, but before this, did the EU consume much American beef at all?
Oh, I can't say I'm extremely studied on the EU, but similar to, I have some theories. They're not hard statements, but I do have theories that other countries like the EU are protecting their ranchers by not importing our beef. I think if they did import U.S. beef, that they would love it, and that it would take the EU rancher so long to produce, maybe not so long, but long enough that it would hurt the EU rancher.
Right.
And just like I was stating earlier, that food security is national security, they don't want to depend on the U.S. to produce them beef, because if we cut that off, they're in trouble.
That's right. Absolutely.
That's a theory. Okay, that's not my hard statement. That's just thinking out loud, brainstorming. And I've been over there. I've been over there before, and I've seen their bright red lean beef, and I didn't like it as much. Probably because I wasn't at home, right? Like it didn't feel like home. But I tend to like, if there's a select steak and a choice steak, like I'm always going to pick choice.
Right.
If there's a
Choice.
choice steak and a prime steak, I'm going to pick prime.
Right.
And so that it's interesting that in the EU, the consumer wants really lean beef. And I don't know if that's, again, I don't know if it's because that's what they actually want, but they also don't eat much beef relative to what the US eats. So maybe if they tried choice or they tried prime, that they would lean more towards that and consume more beef. Maybe that's just me having high hopes, but that's just my thought.
Okay. So that is very interesting. And I have a chart here. You can go, anyone who's interested to learn more about where we export to, you can go to we'll put the link up on screen, but just go to science.gov and then click on USDA and then go to exports, or not exports. You go to animal science. It's a long process. Go to animal science. I just got lucky one day and found it. Animal science, and then you'll find it somewhere from there. I'll put up the link. I'll put the link. Anyways, moving on from that.
That was great. In the topic of the state of the U.S. beef industry, we finished talking about the trade in and now. I'd like to talk about the screwworm.
Okay.
And first off, I'd just like to ask, what is the R.A. Brown Ranch doing to prepare for a possible new screwworm outbreak?
Lots of our preparation has been studying, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my dad barely remembers the issue of screwworm. And so we have two generations, kind of a generation and a half that has never ever been around, doctored for it, looked for it, or anything. And so we have this educational problem to where some think it's fake, some think it's the government, some think it's Elon Musk or Bill Gates who are releasing this fly to hurt the industry and control the people. And that's going to be a real issue whenever that actually comes to the mind of the U.S. of people, rather than working together to get rid of this thing that we got rid of back in the 70s. Rather than working together to get that out, we're kind of fighting each other on who we think is right. So education for ourselves has been really important, but also sharing what we find, whether that's on social media, whether that's at the conventions like these, whether that's at like creating a county. We brought our county came together and had some educational opportunities on the screwworm, what to look for, how we can work together. Because I think it's really important that we share what this is, how serious it is, and how we can work together to get rid of it. So those are the things we're doing. We already do a lot of things. Whenever we're calving, we ride through those cattle every 2 days. We have enough help that we're around our cattle so much, and there's a lot of ranches that don't do that. They don't have the labor force that we have, or they live away from their ranch. Not everybody has that opportunity. So we're kind of the way we work, we're prepared for it.
Absolutely.
I think. We
We
may find out differently.
If you don't mind asking, when are y'all's calving seasons?
So we calve in the spring. So January to April.
Gotcha.
And we may have to trim down on that April calving. We may have to shut it down in March if the screwworm gets here and stays.
Yes, sir.
Cross our fingers that's not going to be a thing.
That's one of the main things that I've kept coming off of is calving seasons being in the winter, because the flies, obviously we know flies here, and the flies are going to almost behave the same in that sense. They're not as active during the cold months, and they're way more active during the summer.
Yes.
So it's better to calve during the colder months. And for anyone who's listening to this is just some stuff that I've read, because I did some research on it for a speech. And that is calving seasons, and then just looking for open wounds and knowing that when we dehorn, when we brand, and when we castrate, we're creating wounds that the screwworm will lay flies in if we don't clean those and watch those and take care of those properly.
Yeah, and if any listeners don't know what that New World screwworm is, which is fair, because we haven't had it here since the 70s. It is a live flesh-eating maggot that will kill whatever it's eating. It will eat an animal alive until it's dead. So it's a serious thing that we can work together to get rid of.
Of course. And
Have you been looking for Brahman cattle with a good genetic background? Contact 79 Cattle Company, selling reliable Brahman replacement heifers, Brahman show prospects, and Brahman bulls. Contact Taylor Tate at 210-241-4511. Again, that's 210-241-4511. Or contact Mallory Tate at 210-861-0155. 210-861-0155.
I mean, it's a scary deal that possibility could happen, especially right now, seeing as, like you said, we're at the lowest we've been since the 50s, and our cattle herd size not good. But we will have to work that. Hopefully, it won't get here. Secretary Rollins has done a lot to try and keep it out, and we're trying to develop new facilities and stuff. But that's definitely a problem. In case of an unfortunate New World screwworm outbreak, which would likely raise the prices of beef? Because, like we said, we're already at the lowest we've been since the 1950s. We'd have more calves, or that would, unfortunately.
Right.
Anyways,
Right.
How do you see that impacting the consumption of beef, or in the demand? Because, like you said earlier, if we were to not import ground beef and now were to raise ground beef prices, people could sought out a different protein source. So do you think that'll change the demand for beef?
I don't think so. I think we have, this is from, and it's cool that I get to come to conventions like this. I get to go to like 5 or 6 a year, and at every one they have a market analysis speech or talk from somebody who is just so good at studying the market. Everything that is on the market right now just has such a strong hold because of the simple equation of supply and demand. We have low supply and we have really high demand. Can screwworm hurt our demand? I think it can a little bit. Only because of fear of the unknown. Is this going to be in my beef? And once we make that clear that no, this isn't something that's in your beef, on your plate, that's not a thing. I just think our demand is so strong and our supply is so low that I don't think it can hurt our market price enough to make a huge difference.
Bester, you were saying that it might, people might go to an alternative protein source. It's going to raise the price for all livestock, because this doesn't just affect the beef industry. This affects, your pigs, your goats, your cattle,
chickens.
Chickens. I don't know if it affects them as much, just because they're not mammals.
Right.
And
it does. It can get into birds.
Yes. I've read that it can get into birds, but it tends to get more into mammals.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, and can get into humans too.
It can.
It can. Yeah, that's a scary fact. And we think we think that we can keep them away, which we can. But if you have a newborn child and is taking a nap outside, and you're not there to swipe that fly away from their nose, it has happened before that a newborn has died from screwworms, and that's a scary thought. As a dad of 3 little girls, that is a terrifying thought. But our homeless population is another serious issue. That'll become a problem.
Right. And it's not like it looks like a normal fly. It looks like a normal fly.
Yeah. If you look close, you can tell.
Yeah, because it has 3 yellow lines on its back and its eyes are orange. But besides that, it's the size of a normal housefly.
Yeah. In general, you would just think.
Thanks, Paul. When I'm swatting it, I'll make sure to check.
Yeah.
Okay, well, again, we need to wrap up this episode. We'll be
Okay.
back with another one. But until next time, keep innovating the cattle industry and signing off.
Hello, guys. Thank you for listening to the Cattle Innovation Station podcast. We want to make this podcast better. So if you would, please like this episode and leave us feedback in the comment section. Something else that helps make this podcast better is when you respond to the polls. So if you're able, please respond to our polls. Help us make this podcast as good as possible. Thank you, God bless, and have a good day.
Thank you for listening to the Cattle Innovation Station podcast.
We hope you enjoyed the show.
We're your hosts, Baxter Whitworth.
And Paul Hayes.
Remember our key verse, Proverbs 16:3.
Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans.
Thank you for listening.